Yeah. So was there ever a moment where, there was sort of major violence in the club? Did you witness any sort of incidents like that?
There was a chap. I won't say his name because he might not want to be mentioned, but he had a nickname. But let's just call him. Let's just call him Smudge instead. He was working on the door of the club on the mainland island. I think he was the Sunny Eong he worked for, but he was sitting on the steps of his club one night, minding his own business on a quiet night. Transit van pulled up, 10 or so triads piled out, and then just set about, it's called a chopping, it's a revenge attack. They set about chopping him up, and Smudge had all these lines across his face. His thumb was chopped off and it was hanging down by his wrist, and they were able to sew it back on. And the bloody maniac, he was only back working on the door 3 days later, right? It was serious old stuff. And
Did you ever fear for your life working there?
I'm pretty fearless anyway, but I was off my head as well, Liam, raging on, you know, crystal meth is a sort of drug of choice for like armed robbers and stuff, because it just makes you a bit invincible to that sort of stuff. There was lots and lots of instances, and it got really random because sometimes I didn't know, Liam, in my fragile mind state, if they were testing me.
Mm-hmm.
So one time I heard this grunt from the club. Daisu, this big tall assassin, he's running out with what looked like an old man over his shoulder, dressed in this seedy, crappy, $10 suit. And Chu Chai was standing looking up the stairs. He hadn't noticed, but I'd noticed. And Daisu promptly just threw this guy down in the footwell, at which point I spread eagle myself against the wall because this is Chinese business, not my business, right? Chu Chai turned around, and as soon as he saw his doorman buddy had a job on, they just set about kicking this guy in the head as hard and as fast as they could. Like couple of Millwall hooligans who've got the rival team fans in an alleyway. It was savage. And as this little ratty guy, he made a break for it and he burst up these stairs, and I saw this bit of paper fall out of his pocket. And because the guys were chasing him, they didn't see it. So I quickly picked it up, tucked it in my pocket, and when no one was looking, I had a look. It was a list of racehorses. Mm-hmm. Hong Kong's famous Happy Valley is a stunning race course there, stunning horses. It's just incredible. And of course, every now and again, Chu Chai would come in and he'd give me the name of a horse, but I've never betted. I don't even know really how you do it. So I used to just go, So I did get involved. They take me for breakfast. We'd walk down the streets at 8 o'clock in the morning in Wan Chai, and all the commuters would just part out your way because this is the Hong Kong Triads coming through. And
was that a real buzz?
Ego central, mate. You for a lost young man who was sitting on his backpack homeless, suddenly I've got the family are taking me out for breakfast, and they cover everything. And if I get in a scrap, they're standing up for me. I thought I'd come home, Liam. I honestly, I found the key of the lock, and now I've come home. This is how gangs recruit. They recruit people who are down on their luck, people that are looking. It's the same with the girls that they would get. It got horrible, mate. They'd recruit these girls that had drug problems, and they either for smuggling like gold, diamonds through the airports, or for the prostitution rackets. It's dark. Dark evil. But evil sucks you in when you live out your ego and you haven't made that connection with the divine, which I certainly hadn't made then, as my substance misuse would probably indicate, right?
There wasn't a sort of moment that you thought morally, this is not right, I shouldn't be involved in this. You were really into it.
Never. I mean, I was still, I didn't have my epiphany, Liam, for another, from that moment, we're talking probably about another, let's just say 18 months, you know, and that 18 months was back in the UK. One time I'm stood in the bar, and you could tell the Triads, because they all wore the white, you remember the white shell suits with the England tops everyone wore back in the 90s, right?
I do remember.
They would wear those white shell suit tops,
right,
jeans and trainers, and they'd have gold chains. That was, whereas in the Marines we had our undercover uniform, when not undercover, but we had our uniform when we went downtown. We wore chucker boots, you know, jeans, Ocean Pacific t-shirt, and we had this thing called a Helly Hansen. It was like the green furry jacket, right? You could tell another Marine, you could spot a Marine a mile away, and you did round the globe. You know, I walked into a bar in Egypt, and I'm like, that guy there's a Marine. All right, hello mate, what unit you in? Oh, I'm in 4-5. Oh, I'm in 4-2. You know, and you just crack on. And it was the same with the Triads, and they also had their communication. They could communicate with their eyes. Don't ask me how. They just look like that. If they look like that, they're saying that person there. It was, Liam, it was insane. Then
Did
they've
they
got all the.
also, I read somewhere, you know, I mean, like about the weapons that they had, that they used to have meat cleavers on them. Is that right?
Yeah. So in the back of the club, we had a storeroom where all the drinks were, and that was like a little kitchen. Not that anyone ever used it. Everyone just helped themselves to a Coca-Cola from the bar or something.
Yeah.
But you know, in that kitchen, up on the conduit where the cables ran, there was these lumps of sawn off iron bar. You know, perfect for slamming into an enemy's face. There's a meat cleaver behind the you know, this is one chai. It's the home of the Triads. It's 14K territory. One time, the Sunny Yong, I think, was the I might have got that wrong. It was a long time ago, but Sunny Yong came over from the mainland, and there was another Chris. He was a gay chap. He was their doorman, right? And he come through the door of my club, and there was a big snake of Sunny On warriors bit behind him, and the 14K just everything's in the eyes, Liam. You know, and they came in, and it was like a Mexican standoff. One Triad doesn't go on another Triad. It's just unwritten law. It you know, the last time this happened in Wan Chai, there was a pitch battle where 250 Triads fought each other. I remember saying to someone, how do they know who's who? And they're like, oh, they know. Might be like a matchstick in the mouth, might be something they're wearing, might be the way, you know, the way that they part. They got all these secret, ancient, esoteric signs and symbols and stuff.
Is there like a sort of, for you being a foreigner, as it were, is there any kind of initiation that you have to do?
I didn't. I like, literally, I was just a doorman, right? I wasn't even a doorman. I was more like a go-between, so that when the expats come in the club, they didn't do something bloody stupid. Like one of them one time chucked a glass of water over the dilo. Whoa. And you got to understand the mentality. These are rah-rahs. They're highfalutin people that live in, they're on, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, working in these big luxury skyscrapers, thinking that they're it. Maybe they've done a bit of sniff or something, and they're in the club going, oh, I'm not paying for water. He's trying to charge me for water. And I'm like, mate, right. So first off, this is Hong Kong. This is the most expensive square foot land on the planet. That's why they charge you for water. They got to pay their rates. So secondly, that guy you just threw the glass of water over, he's the most important man in Wan Chai. And turn around, you see those guys over there, the 6 guys with the shell suit tops on, all looking at you like they're going to kill you any second. That's because they are. So why don't you just turn around and totter off and go and get yourself a cab? Because if you don't, I'm just going to I will get you a cab for you, right? And you know that's how it was, Liam. But when the Sonny Young came in, there's this like Mexican standoff. I'm stood there as the doorman. I'm not getting involved. It's not even though I'm a doorman. It's like that's Chinese business. Mm-hmm. And I sided up to Chrissy, and I'm like, Chris, what are you boys doing on the island? He said, I think we're just about to leave, mate. And that was it. They all turned as one. Literally, I tell you, they talk with their eyes, Liam. I couldn't swear to it, but that's like how it seemed, you know.
Were you frightened at any point? Did you just there and something might happen to you, or did it worry you?
No, I'm ex-Marine. I'm you know, sounds a bit grandiose. I was fearless, Liam. Mm-hmm. You know, the bigger the scrap, the better. As far as I'm concerned, I'm like I want to be involved. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying I'd have got involved with it, but I knew, I sort of, you know, I knew the limits. And at the end of my time, when I started to get really ill, I started to fall down on those and go across barriers where I shouldn't. And it got really nasty one night. I genuinely thought I was being set up to be murdered, like a chop-in. It's in my book, you know, I explain it, and it was it's a very strange thing to know you're going to die. Yeah. I don't think it's an experience many people have, not as a young person. You know, I knew in my mind, 100%, I'm going to die now.
Well, what did you think at that moment then?
Well, at first, my heart was beating out of its chest, especially as I'm high on crystal meth. So my pulse rate's probably about 200 beats per minute by now, right? But then I started to rationalize it, right? All these triads are coming into the club from other clubs. They're looking at me, they're going, we're going to fucking kill you tonight, Guaylo, mm-hmm. Right? And it was all because I'd gobbed off at a Chinese girl, and she was in with all the triad bosses and stuff. And it was only she bumped into me on the way out the club, and she did it on purpose. I could, you know, mm-hmm. and she turned around and went, Pokai, Guaylo. It's Pokai. I won't say what it means, but you can probably guess. It's the worst form of insult in Cantonese. You never say it to anyone, right? So she shouldn't have said that to me, mm-hmm. Right? And I turned around and I said, sorry, I don't speak Cantonese, love. You know, obviously I spoke enough of it to know what she said. And she was she was like livid. And the next thing I know, all these people are coming down into the club from other clubs, you know, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Guaylo gonna get it tonight. And I'm like, I just started to feel really dark. This is just not right. And then before I knew it, there's like about 15 triads from all the nearby clubs, and they're all in the bar, and they're all sort of stood on the other side of the bar. And I'm just, you would just imagine, you know, it's like one of those nasty films that come out of the Middle East, those ISIS ones, you know, it's just, that's what I'm predicting. And then I thought, hang on a sec. And there was a couple of expats, because some expats were right in with the triads. Mm-hmm. There was something called the Foreign Triad in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. It's made up of like the Filipino bar girls, anyone that would sell gear on behalf of the triads, because triads will work with anyone. You just can't be a triad. Mm-hmm. You know, if you can sell some bags for them in the club, they'll, you know, they're a money making crime organ. And a couple of Guaylos coming in, when they gobbed off at me, I'm like, you know, it's one thing the Chinese, there's a respect thing there. I'm not going to tell them to off, especially as there's 15 in the club now. You're a fucking expat toe rag. Don't you speak to me like that. I'm a former Royal Marines commando. I'll pan your fucking face in, mate, you know? Well, I try to. It's like, like 10 stone of me at the time, whatever it was. But anyway,
was that a disadvantage? I mean, by the fact that you dropped so much weight, could you still handle yourself?
Well, to be honest, it rarely came to it. Mm-hmm. Usually, the people I had to deal with were so, you know, they'd so pissed. You could just push them with one finger out the club. Mm-hmm. You know, if they turn around to try to get you, just flap their arm, you know, slap their arms away and say, "Go and get a cab, mate." Yeah. You know, the idea was not to get in trouble in nightclubs. Not like the UK where the bouncers used to have a good old, you know, beat on the client, on the customer. Over there, it's like, you don't want the police on your premises. Right. One time they rocked up after this savage fight between two young triads, and that was weird. They were stabbing each other with mobile phones. Blood was pouring out of one of them. One of them grabbed his t-shirt and the lad just made a run for it up the steps, and the t-shirt ripped off in the other guy's arm, at which point he's like, "Julie Lamo," which is a reference to doing something to your mother, right?
Yeah.
And he charged. They were stabbing each other with their phones. I told you, the Triads will pick up anything in a fight, right? Mm. And on the floor, I ran to get a mop to sweep up this, you know, mop up this blood, because I knew the police were coming. Don't ask me how. I just knew someone in the club could have called the police, right? I looked down, and as I'm mopping up this blood, I found a capsule, Liam. It was a fake blood capsule, right? Yeah. I seen it. It's a fake blood capsule. So I didn't let on. I just continued, you know, pretending. Lo and behold, who rocks up? Two policemen. Mm-hmm. You've got to remember, a lot of the policemen in Hong Kong are triads, right? Yeah. It's an underground. It's like the Freemasons. You don't know who could be one, who's not, right? So I don't know if this is a test. And they come in the club and they said, you see a fight in here tonight? Yeah. I said, "Fight, officer?" "Yeah, someone report fight in here tonight." I'm like, "I haven't seen a fight in here tonight." And I'm looking, and I can see the dialogues, like looking for, you know, he's looking across the bar at me to see what I'm going to say. So Liam, what I'm saying is, I don't know if that was a test, you know, a test. When I had this thing with the murder, or what is called in my book, the murder, where I thought I was going to get it.
Yes.
I'm in that moment. I'm dead chilled. But when them expats come in and they're jumping on the bandwagon going, you know, I'll bet you wish you hadn't said this now. And they'd reference something I'd said months ago in innocence or naivety, and they'd use it as a weapon against me, as, "Oh, look, you're in knob," and like, it was like this. I don't give a shit. I'll die, but you ain't gonna see me scared. No, if you're gonna chop me, I will laugh my ass off while you do it. And then in that moment of bravado, this chilling white, you know, saliva starts dripping in your mouth, Liam, when you're that scared, you know. It's like you get this electric taste through you. Everything goes white and like saturnine. Is that the word? I'm not sure. It's just, everything goes white, like you're suddenly like on a hospital ward or something. And in that moment, I felt such anger. And I thought, you know what? And then I just stopped. And I thought, right, what are they expecting me to do? Run up them stairs and like run away? You know, go and like wrap myself around the nearest copper? Or I thought, I'm a former Royal Marine. Like, I'm just never going to do that. I'd rather die first. I'll fucking fight the fucking lot of you, and I'll die fighting. And then I just started thinking, hang on a sec. I'm quite popular I used to be really popular until I got you know, almost become a bit of a laughing stock, I suppose you'd say, or people just didn't know how to be around me because my behavior was getting so bizarre. But I thought, you know, I've worked in 3 clubs in this area alone. What are they going to do when Interpol come looking for like the missing doorman? That's, you know, this guy's just disappeared off the face of the earth, you know, chopped into bits and chucked into Hong Kong Harbour to feed the fish or whatever. They had sharks. So big, look, there were 10 shark attacks while I was there. One random year, they had this spate of shark attacks. But anyway,
yeah.
Anyway, Liam, I'm like, nah, they're having a laugh with me, aren't they? They must be, you know, they must be. And in that moment, I thought, well, I wouldn't let them get one over on me. I was that defensive of myself, of my, you know, my ego, my pride. So I just walked into the club, walked into the middle of the dance floor, and all these eyes are like just looking at me. Done a Michael Jackson spin, and then just started dancing with the Filipinos. and it was my way of saying, look, you know, you're just not going to see me scared, you know, even though at one point I was pretty terrified, if I was honest.
Did you get respect for that there? How did they?
I don't know. It wasn't like I could go up to the dialer and go, look, was that a test? You know, there was a lot of weird stuff. A Thai girl had been sent over from a club to be with the Dilo. Paul Eng, I call him in my book, right? Paul's drinking with a manager of the club. The manager's called David. He's not Triad. He's just a businessman. He has to pay this gang to run his club. Otherwise, he can't run a club. Just like Soho, you know, mafias, they want their dibs, don't they, right? So they were sat drinking with these 2 Thai girls who'd been sent over to, like, you know, be their escorts for the night. One of the Thai girls got up to go to the bar and she just collapsed on the floor. A friend then just starts jumping up and down with her, and I run over her, and I'm at first I thought they were around. I thought they're showing off in front, and then the girl on the floor, her face is blue. So I shoves the girl off, bends down. I put like my tongue over her mouth just to see, because I couldn't sense any breath, and it's just a slight breath. And I took her pulse. It was like, it was 200 or something. It was ridiculous. And I thought, it's got to be meth overdose, you know, crystal meth overdose. So I grabbed her bag and I start to look through to see, you know, is there drugs in there, so that when the ambulance come, I can say it's this drug or it's that drug, right? Like what you do in the UK. A friend is like, oh, realizes what I'm doing, grabs the hamper back. She'd rather her friend dies than it gets exposed, because drugs is funny. I'm going to say this now. It's taboo, Liam, in Hong Kong.
Really?
Yeah. My Vance said to me, he said, you know, Chris, very bad, very bad. You do the drug. When you make your fortune, you can do the drug. But before you make your fortune, taking drug is very bad, you know. Basically, you get ostracized. You know, they see the homeless people with all these marks all up their arms, all infected, big abscesses on their legs. They know that's what happens if you know, that's what can happen. And Hong Kongers are all into making their fortune. That stuff is just not, it's so.
But did the people then at the club know that you were taking all the drugs?
Well, obviously I didn't broadcast it, but more and more they were like, eventually one of the, it was actually an expat who worked for them as well. It was a South African chap called Drick. It was like, Chris, you know, you shouldn't like do that stuff before work. Yeah, I like a drink, but you know, I don't drink before work. And I'm like, crystal meth's not kind of like that. You can't like take it a bit and not, you know. And anyway, I'm trying to save this little angel's life, thinking about her parents back in bloody Chiang Mai that don't know their daughter's in Hong Kong prostituting herself, and she's now dying of a you know, drug overdose, and no one would help me. Daisu, the assassin, went and got this bunch of dirty rat. I'm like, Daisu, I need a jacket. A Filipino was leaving a club. I said, love, give us your jacket. She's like, and she ran out the door, right? You got to remember, these people earn nothing. That jacket to her was probably either the most important thing she ever had, or B, she didn't want it on a dead body, you know, a potentially dead body. I looked around the club, everyone had just stopped drinking, all the Chinese, and they were just staring at me like that. I didn't know what the... Apparently, this mega superstition around death, they just don't want nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
The boss comes over, Paul Eng, he's like, throw her in the alleyway. I'm like, sorry, Paul? Throw her in the alleyway. I was like, look, I didn't know how important this man is, Liam, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck am I going to do that? You know, at that moment, this English guy come over, expat. He'd been drinking at the back of the club. He said, are you all right, bud? Can I help you at all? I said, yeah, mate, go 7-Eleven and call an ambulance. He's like, yeah, right. I'm like, no, look around you. And he looked around the club, and then he realized what I'd realized, like no one's going to help. No one's going to call nothing, right? And he went, yeah, got you, bud. And he went out the door, and I seen him pulling his jacket on, and he just looked and gave me a nod. And 10 minutes later, the ambulance come. And I told them, look, I think she's overdosed, probably crystal meth. This is her pulse rate. You know, she's barely breathing. And they took the little girl out on a stretcher, and I like to think that she's still alive, right? Anyway, it didn't go down well, Liam. You know, one of the there was a Filipino glass girl in a car, you know, collected the glasses. She come over, she said, oh, Chris, what happened there? I said, I don't know. I said, I just told the ambulance people that she probably had a drug overdose. And she went, and Chinese are not very, Asians not very subtle. She just turned around, went straight over to the Dilo, the big brother, Paul Eng. And he's like looking at me like she's just told him just what. When we went for breakfast the next morning, none of them would speak to me, you know.
Really?
None of them.
Did you know then that sort of your time was up there?
Well, I sidled up to the Dilo and I said, Paul, the girl last night, and he'd never look at you. Dilo never look at you, just always look ahead. And he went, uh-huh. So I did the wrong thing, right? And that was it. I knew I didn't need to say anything more. He don't need, you know, I understand, right? And he understands that I'm trying to say sorry. What one of the other doormen told me, if that happens, Chris, chuck her over your shoulder and run and chuck her in a cab, but get her out the club, because the club owner loses face.
Yes.
If people realize there's people doing drugs in his club, he loses face. And that, you know, so that was that. There was a lot, there was other instances. I won't go into them, but it come to a head where I liked that job. I really did. And I decided I was going to quit the meth, and I did. I just went cold turkey.
What is that like, to go cold turkey after you've done all of that?
So on meth, there's no physical withdrawal other than a ravenous hunger, which is what I would do if I had any money in my wallet. I'd go to the 7-Eleven, I'd buy a bag of raisin bread, a tin of condensed milk, you know, that really sickly sweet. And I'd make condensed milk sandwiches. And I tell you what, Liam, I'm not joking. I was like a ravenous dog eating them. I couldn't get them into my face fast enough. I was that depleted of calories, that starving. It's like a base animal starvation, right? And but what would happen is you'd be all right for a bit because you still had it flowing in your bloodstream, right? When you woke up. But when it started to wane, you crash with an exhaustion like nothing you can describe. You'd be exhausted in mind, body, and your soul had gone anyway. You'd be depleted for days. We're talking it would take about 4 days to even feel like you didn't want to sleep, right? This is how bad. And of course, there's me, idiot face, rather than just like cut down gradually. No, I went into work like that. And before long, my head's rolling around, you know, and I had to go and take myself out to that back room where all the drinks and the weapons were. I sat down on a crate of bloody Schweppes or something, and I'm like, you know, and I sat there for an hour probably went into two. And finally the little, I think his name was Sydney, the little barman that I'd very first seen in there. He just come in, he went, Quissa, the boss say, you don't need to work here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, Sid, you know, where had I heard that before? This is about the eighth job I've lost over there now, you know, but I believe in myself, Liam, you know, I don't give a shit, you know, I will rise again, you know. I remember sitting I just collapsed on the street, all these lotto cards and raffle, I mean, Hong Kong love betting, you know, and there's all these tickets and stuff blowing over me, and I'm just think, right, can't pay my flat, my apartment, that's gonna go. Homeless again. Yeah. God, is this the worst you can do? Because you better try a lot harder if you want to get me down, you know. And that was that, and it culminated. I won't. I got this job. Ironically, this is going to blow your mind. You know, I still needed money. I was desperate, so I applied to an advert in the paper. Someone said, "Chris, get a job as a teacher. They pay." You know, so I called up this agency and they said, yeah, come straight away. We need, you know, Guaylo teachers. And they sent me to this primary school in the Northern Territories.
That's a different job.
And I went there, and the very first day, like, they're all fell in their lines on the playground. Their expat, you know, the Chinese headmistress is there. Their expat teachers are like leading them off all seriously to class, like bloody like a concentration camp or something. I was like, right, class, follow me. And I just, like, we did a whole lap of the playground, like doing the aeroplane. And I'd be in class and I'd say, right, should we go outside? And they're like, these like little tackers, like 6 or 7 years old. They're like, so, okay, leave your bags, follow me. And I get down on all fours, and we crawled under all the other classroom windows, right? And I'm looking back, and the kids, they're just trying not to like laugh hysterically, and they're all going like this. When we went outside and we play silly games like, right, who can do a handstand? Who can beat me? You know, what's this? Sir, banana, sir. Yeah. I've only told you my demise, or whatever you call it. You know, we talked the down.
Resurrection we want.
But I'll tell you what, life just, if you just rock and roll with it, it becomes, I live in paradise, Liam, you know.
So now, folks, I know it's terrible. We got to stop there, but we are going to do a part 2 to this, where Chris is going to talk about, you know, his resurrection. Also, we'll go back to talk about his army days, because he served in Northern Ireland and everything. But one of the main things is get the book. Can they get the book, Chris, still? Where can they get the book?
Yes, Eating Smoke is the memoir. I don't know if you could put up a picture of it.
Yes, absolutely.
I've written 3 memoirs now. This is my latest one, State of Mind. It's a story of how I ran 36 ultra marathons in 36 days, the length of the country, carrying all my camping equipment and sleeping by the side of the road. Like I say, life is good, Liam. You know, you just got to learn from these little, you know, skirmishes that we have now and again. They're all temporary.
More than skirmishes. So
they're all temporary.
Sorry to wind it up, but what a fascinating man! What a fascinating life! Do go out and get the book, and we're going to be doing some more with Chris. So we're going to arrange to do some more next week. So stay tuned, and thanks very much, everybody, for watching.